Hi guys, so today's demo is going to be how to paint the color wheel, and your objective here is how to blend without hard edge lines showing. I will do this demo as quickly as I can. I will also do a time-lapse version of this video so that you can see it kind of sped up a little bit. One thing I want to say is I always find yellow to be the most difficult color to work with. Red and blue are going to give you a little trouble when they're too dark, so what you want to do is with super dark colors, you just want to mix in a little tiny bit of extra water to your paint so that it's easier to see the color on the computer paper. Now, if you can't print out this worksheet, you can do this activity just on a piece of paper. Just draw a shape, and it doesn't have to be a triangle. It's also okay if it's something different. I just want to see you blending, okay? That's the goal. So I use two different brushes so that I can work a little faster. You know, you can use as many as you want. I get the brushes wet, not super soaking wet. Like I said, I'm going to start with yellow here. And then I'm going to move into yellow, green, yellow, orange. So what you want to do is try to stay within the lines. You always want to try to practice. Practice doesn't always work perfectly, so if you get a little bit outside of the lines, it's okay, but try to practice meaningfully. If you notice, as I go from yellow into this yellow-orange color, I want to make sure that I am using these vertical paint strokes rather than pulling my brush like this, okay? It's going to be easier to blend it in. It's the same thing when you're drawing pencil and value scales. Now at this point I need to wet my brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and put some on my wax paper and a palette wherever you're blending, and then I want you to take just like a little tiny bit of orange here, and you're going to slowly start to move towards your next color. Maybe just a smidge more, and then you can go ahead and add that. So here you can see the color is just a little bit different. It's also helpful to start from edges and work your way towards the center, and then smooth out your paint strokes. As in the gradient worksheet, you're going to have to do 2 coats. You're always going to have to do 2 coats of things, so please expect that. It's going to make your artwork look a lot better in the end. Nothing ever looks good in just one. Okay, so what I'm doing with this orange is I put a very, very tiny swipe of blue into it, which was already kind of mixed in a little bit, but what this is doing is dulling the super bright color that the orange is naturally out of the bottle, and it brings it down to something that's more neutralized and a little bit more realistic. The bottle color is very, very bright. That's also the case for the yellow-green, okay? At this point, I'd want to dip my brush in the water, but not necessarily get all the paint off, just kind of make it a little bit less intense. Blot it gently without wiping too much, and then just kind of blend the lines in between like this and overlap the orange into the yellow-orange a little bit, okay? If it picks up a little color like it did there, just go over it with more. If it leaves little chunks, just try to pull them off and then smooth out the surface, okay? And then again, when you go over this with a second coat, it's going to look a lot better. It's going to kind of tighten up your blotchy areas, okay? So at this point, I will rinse my brush, and then I just want to go over this bar of gradient with a little bit of extra yellow. So I'm going to try and grab the yellow that's still pure in here. And then, while it's still a little bit wet, I'm going to go over this whole thing with just a light swipe like that. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to rinse off and really clean this brush that I used the yellow on, and I'm going to go the other direction into yellow greens. Okay, so I want to have a brush that is as clean as possible. This one could have a little orange in it, but I think I did a good enough job getting that cleaned. The other one I don't want any orange because I'm going into my greens. So I may have to stop and just take a minute to clean up my brushes. So what I start doing now is I go the other direction and again go from both edges into the middle. So you're going to take the yellow and overlap it a little bit like this into that yellow-green color. Okay, next I'm going to switch brushes at this point, and I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow-green. All right, and I actually feel like this could be a little too much. And let me adjust this so you can see that mix a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to start going over this yellow-green. Put a little bit more green into it. And then you just kind of keep going over that. You can also dip your brush and add just a tiny bit of water to keep your paint flowing and nice and fresh. Normally I would be introducing you to gel mediums that help you blend, but with us not being at school, it's just one supply that we don't absolutely have to have, that we can live without. Blending with water is a little annoying. It's not my personal preference, but right now it's what we're going to do to get this done. Okay, so as you can see, I'm now moving more towards green. I'm going to work my way into that really bright bottle color of the yellow-green because it's pretty heavy and harsh. And then I always work a little bit away and then see how I'm going towards the yellow-green, like the word. Be real careful as you get over here. You don't want to get too much into that yellow area. It's really tough to fix once you've darkened this too much. Okay, I'm gonna wet my brush and grab some more of the green, but I've used a bunch of it. So I'm just gonna try and grab what's left here, just enough to get through this worksheet. Mix a little bit of it. And see, now I'm going to go a little bit back this way. Now one thing I do is when I go from green towards yellow-green, I'm going to lighten the pressure of my brush against the paper because it helps me to blend better. Another trick is to wipe your brush on the paper towel and then just super light, kind of like you're dusting it with a feather. It's going to help you blend out a lot of the lines without kind of smearing the colors. Okay, so you can still see the words through this. And again, on your second coat, you're going to want to try and cover up those words. So as you get through more of your paint layers and as the paint dries, it will be easy for you to clean this up. So take your green and start grabbing a little bit more of your dark green and moving into the blue-green color here. Okay, then you're going to add a little bit of blue and kind of keep going. All right. If you feel that you did not get the right color, you didn't blend it well, what you can do is just let it dry and paint over it. Okay, acrylic is actually really forgiving as long as you let it dry. If I try to fix everything when it's wet, it's going to make a mess. But dry paint will definitely stay opaque and solid. It will not re-wet itself like watercolor would, but you will be able to fix mistakes, is my point. Okay, so as I get into the blue, here's where the color is going to start to get really, really dark, and I'm going to have a hard time going over this and making it like the dark blue separating from the dark violet if I don't dip my brush in the water and just kind of thin out the paint color like a little bit. Okay, so that way as I paint blue on the paper, I'm actually going to see it through and it's not going to be super heavy. Overlap it into the blue-green and try to tidy up some of those edges Okay, now it does feel like I have a lot of water in my brush, so I'm gonna go ahead and blot that off. And then if I were to grab just some pure blue paint and not water it down, right here in this corner, you can see how much heavier it is. Okay, and that blue becomes very, very dark. It doesn't allow you to see any of the paper color through. So you want to be careful with that. If it's too heavy and too dark, remember, just mix a little bit of water in, okay? If you feel like the colors visually separate well and you can see that easily, then you can just go ahead and leave it. It's kind of like, if it looks good, leave it alone, okay? And then I'm gonna stop here because I'm at 11 minutes. I know that's a long demo. I'm gonna do the other half of this in a separate video for you guys, okay? So thanks for tuning in.